what Jim didn't tell you is that I'm also the Boston area rep. And I had the good fortune of being involved in this case from the beginning, and it's not often that a rep gets involved in the case because of HIPAA laws. They just don't tell you the patient's situation and what's going on. But on May 8th of 2015, I was in a case with Paul Weitzel, doctor at New England Baptist. He said, "Can you do me a favor and check on the status of a patient, Elizabeth Hahn?" And I said, "Sure. Is there something I should know about this patient?" And he said, "She was in my office. She needs an osteochondral allograft." We went through the calendar of when it would happen. She would be in crutches on her wedding day in September. So I said, "Oh." So then he said, I thought about it for a minute, and I went through some very intricate mental calculations and said, "But if we get the allograft by the end of May, she'll be through rehab, through recovery, and she'll make the September date." And he looked at me and said, "That's why I'm asking." Bolted out of the OR. Immediately got on the phone to Ashley. Said, "Ashley, please look up this patient." She says, we don't have the films here." And I said, "You've got to get the films. This girl was crying in the doctor's office. She's getting married in September. We have to deliver. Ashley, do whatever you can. I'll talk to Jim." He said, "Steal it from another patient. I'll call the doctor, tell him I dropped the graft. Do whatever you need to do, but we need to come across with this." So Ashley, there was a moment of silence, and Ashley said, "I'm on it." Now, for every married man in this room, you know that when a woman makes a statement when she's exhaling, it means God forbid anybody or anything that gets in her way. So I had this mental picture of Ashley standing up on her desk saying, "Battle stations," when I hung up the phone. And that's pretty much what happened. Because I went back in the OR, and 2 hours later, Ashley called me back. She gave me the news that the films were sent to the old address. She went there, retrieved them herself, brought it back, measured them up, had a team back her up, measure it up, and they selected an allograft from one that was in process. So when I heard that, I walked back in the OR, and I did what no rep should ever do in the OR. I kicked open the door and walked in there like I owned the place. And I said, "We have a graft for Elizabeth Hahn." And Dr. Weitzel looked up and said, "Great work, Dan." And being the team player that I am, I said, "Thank you." And then I basked in the heroism for about 10 or 15 seconds, and I said, "You know, this was a real team effort. I just made the call. It was an effort back in Centennial, and they really delivered." And he said, "That's great. We're going to schedule the case when I get back." Well, as Ellie said, we got the news a couple days later that the graft did not pass, but Team JRF Ortho came through again with a backup graft, and we held the surgery date. So we anticipated the surgery date, and I was at that surgery, and Ellie's right, it did run late, and when we were getting ready for the surgery, I made sure the instruments were there and the allograft was there. I said, "This is a very special case." And the anesthesiologist said, "Another VIP?" And I said, "The VIPest." And then I told them the story, and everybody's heart went out to Ellie, and we were going to make that case happen. There was going to be absolutely nothing wrong in that case, and it was going to be classic. When all of those conditions existed, everything was absolutely perfect. Everything went according to schedule, couldn't have been a better case. And when Dr. Weitzel put in the plug, I was watching him, and he put in the plug, and I could see his cheeks rise above his mask. And I said, "This is good." So I said, "How is it?" And he said, "Perfect." So then I took a look myself and saw it was perfect. And I knew the answer to the question, but I asked him anyway. I said, "Will she walk down that aisle in September?" And he bellowed out so everyone could hear it. "She will indeed walk down that aisle in September." And there were fist pumps and high fives and cheers in the OR, and it was just a great moment. It was an exciting moment. Everybody left that operating room with an extra skip in their step and a smile on their face, but no one was more excited than I was. I ran back to my Jeep, the Italian took over on me, and I just had to tell the story. So, first person I called was Ashley, and I'm there, ring, 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 voicemail. Then I called Dina, and went, ring, 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 voicemail. I said, I gotta tell it on the mountain. I just gotta tell this story. So I decided to call Jim on his cell. And the poor guy answered the phone. "Jim, remember Elizabeth Hahn, that patient that was gonna have the wedding?" And he said, "Yes." And that's the only word I let him say. "Jim, the case was tonight, it was great, it went perfect, everything was fantastic. The doctor said she walked down the aisle. I feel so happy, we should be so proud. We did it, Jim, we did it." And Jim was very polite, but I'm sure on the other end he was doing one of these, you know? And he said, "I'm glad, Dan, you're so excited about the case. But I knew what he really meant was, you've had way too much coffee today. But I was excited, and I kept that excitement going. And finally, on September 23rd, I got the email from Dr. Weitzel with that picture in it. And I must have looked at it for 10 or 15 minutes, just feeling so proud and such a sense of accomplishment, because we don't often get that. So that case was one of the highlights of my career. It really was. And I feel blessed that I was able to be a part of it. But I want to step back and say one other thing. This story did not begin with that case on May 8th. It began weeks earlier with the tragic death of Darcy, of an individual who donated her tissue, followed by the courageous act of her parents, then followed by the whole sequence of events of the anticipation, the surgery, the disappointment when the graft didn't pass, the excitement, the rehab, and then finally started with the ultimate sorrow, ended with the ultimate joy of Ellie being able to walk down the aisle with her father. Now, when you step back and you think of that, it's a real-life fairy tale. It really is. It's a fairy tale no less magical or no less uplifting than a Snow White or a Cinderella. Walt Disney himself couldn't have scripted a better script for this. So I have two questions. How often in someone's life do you get to experience a real-life fairy tale happening? Second, more important question is, how often in someone's life are you responsible to have that fairy tale happen? For 99% of the population, the answer to the first question is maybe once if I'm lucky. The answer to the second question is never. For everybody in this room, the answer to the first question is every day. And the answer to the second question is every day. Every allograft has a story. We just don't know it. But every one of them has a story behind it. And when we do get the opportunity to hear that story, it is no time to be humble, and it is no time to say it's just part of our job. It's a time to celebrate, it's a time to pump our fists, it's a time to hold our heads high and really feel proud of what we do. So we have to remember that it's not a meniscus and it's not a condyle. It's someone's acceptance back to work because they now can provide for their family and climb ladders. It's a scholarship for an underprivileged high schooler who wouldn't be able to go to college otherwise. It's some young lady's glass slipper. So as members of the JRF Ortho team, we don't get up in the morning to go to work. We get up in the morning to help someone be able to walk pain-free and run with their dog in the morning. We get up in the morning to be able to make a young parent be able to get down on the floor and play with their kids. We get up in the morning to make someone's once-in-a-lifetime dream day happen. Everyone has their own perception of job satisfaction, but for this rep, it just doesn't get any better than this. So I can't tell you how proud I am to wear the JRF badge. Thank you for being my back, and thank you for allowing me to be a member of such an elite team. Thank you.